Hey, blessed ambassadors, welcome to today's edition of What's on My Mind. Copyright, trademark. Well, I might as well get this over with. I found out this week that I'm like Abraham. I'm having a child in my later years. So as you can imagine, I'm quite stunned that I could get through that sentence without laughing. I'm not having a child. I'm not having a child. Hopefully no one stopped the video right there and started calling people, John's having a child. John's having a child. Is he married? I don't think he's married. Anyway, I'm not having a child. But I did find myself to be like Abraham this week. Actually, the past couple of weeks. How's that, you ask? I'm glad you asked. You know those promises that we have from the Lord, right? That we hold on to them and we hold on to them and we hold on to them. Well, I was reading Romans 4 in the Passion Translation, of course. And in Romans 4, this is so cool. Romans 4:16 says, the promise depends on faith, so that the promise can be experienced as a grace gift. Don't you love that? It depends on faith so that as you experience the promise, you know that you didn't earn it. It's a gift of love from the Father to you. It's a gift of love from heaven to you. Okay, so what about when we're waiting on the manifestation of that grace gift, right? And that's where I found myself this week, is I have these promises that are so awesome that I'm so excited about it, and that I pray about, and that I confess and I declare, and I know that my faith is, yes, I have them. And as you know, as I know, there's always a gap between the promise and the provision, right? And we know that the Lord is good. The Lord is good. He is loving. So there is a purpose for the gap, right? It doesn't make the gap easier sometimes. It's just there, a gap between the promise and the provision. Or using the language from last week, remember when I talked about Ido versus Gnosko? Ido is knowing that you know something without knowing how you know it, you just know it. And Gnosko is that you know something through experience because you have it, right, or whatever. So it came to me that there's a gap between Ido, knowing, and Gnosko, knowing, right? So what do we do in the gap? Well, for myself, I figured I can either have a faith gap or I could have a sight gap, right? Walk by faith, not by sight. And honestly, truthfully, sometimes it's a faith gap, yeah, and sometimes it's a sight gap. But I'm sure maybe I'm the only one, and that's okay. So here's my encouragement to you, ambassadors, that, because I didn't stop at Romans 4:16, I went to Romans 4:18. This is so cool. Romans 4:18, right, in the Passion Translation says, against all odds, when it was hopeless, and I added, because I thought about this, and finally Abraham was helpless to make the promise manifest, right? So against all odds, hopeless, and he was finally helpless to make it happen. Then he still believed. He still believed the Father. He still believed the promises. He believed that God would do what he said he would do. And 3, that he just lived by every word that proceeded from the mouth of God. Right? So in that time, and we know it was a long, right? He was 100 years old when he had his child. So that's a long time. And I pray over you and over me that we're not 100 when we see the manifestation of our promises. But in that faith gap, right? In the faith gap. That's what I want to speak over you and over me. That we hold on to those promises and we say, yes, Lord, I believe you. I live by every word that proceeds from your mouth. And I know you will fulfill the word that you have given to me, right? And ambassadors, it's okay that it's not always a faith gap, right? But just keep looking to the Lord. Just know that he loves you, he's for you, and that he's even in the gap with you. How cool is that? He's in the gap with you, right? Whether it's a faith gap or a sight gap, he's right there with you, and he loves you. You know what? I love you too. You're awesome. All right, ambassadors, thanks for hanging out with me today. I will be back at NRH on Saturday. Sunday, let's take it Sunday. And I'll have fun over at Frisco with Big Alex. He'll take care of you and he'll do it right, I'm sure. All right, guys. Love you guys. See you next week. Faith Gap.